Yes, guys, welcome back to another week of the weekly roundup, and I think it's week 31. Who cares what week it is, because it's been the craziest week, definitely by far, of what we've reported on any podcast or anything like that. It's probably been the biggest week of news in crypto news in general. Everyone's
Yeah.
saying it, because obviously this whole podcast obviously can be surrounding this topic that obviously we've got in front of you here. The FTX Binance saga, whatever you want to call it, it's been kicking off. It's kind of escalated very quickly, and unfortunately, the crypto market has felt its repercussions in terms of price action, in terms of everything. There's a lot going on. We're going to try and cover most of it. I'm sure you've kind of tried to listen to a lot of YouTube videos out there trying to discuss this topic, because it's a very hot topic. Everyone's talking about it right now, and rightly so. But yeah, we've got a couple of threads, obviously joined by Will.
Hello,
Obviously
guys.
joined by Will. Forgot to introduce him. But obviously, we've got a couple of threads. We've got Will's thread here that he put out this morning. Go check it out, show some love, retweet it, etc. And then we're gonna also talk about this guy's thread. Similar threads, both cover similar points regarding the topic. And then we've got other tabs as well, just to discuss. But where do we start? Because it's nuts. What's happened over the past few days is just nuts. Like the way that the events have kind of come out on the back of each other, how quick it's moved, how we kind of got to a point where we thought we were going to get saved, but then it's not, and then the market is dumped further. It's been crazy, but we'll start off with Will's thread, obviously, like I said. And I like this line, just before we do dive into it. You might need a whiskey opposed to a coffee for this one, because it's a bit stressful. It is a bit stressful. And just a quick one to anyone who's out there who's watching this, who's obviously got money invested into crypto. It's hard to give advice to people when market dumps. Now, obviously, we've only been in the space for what? Like, I've personally only been here for 2 years. Will's been here for longer. But we've seen our fair share of like crashes, such little mini dumps like this. It's not nice. But know what you're investing. Yeah. Don't do anything stupid. Don't panic sell, but also cover yourself. But at the same time, we're all in the same situation here. That's what I'm trying to say.
And I think that one extra just thing to put on the back of that is, guys, if you're not using self-custody wallets like a Ledger or a Trezor, like there's no other time that's going to be more obvious than now as to why you should use that. And yes, you might think, oh, that's too late to say, but I almost say it every week. Get your crypto off exchanges, and that's like more true now than it has ever been. But yeah, let's dive into it and what's been going on, pal.
Yeah, let's dive into it. So it's hard to get a starting point, because actually this story kind of like I've been listening to so many podcasts this week regarding this topic. It started like years ago, actually, if you really do think about it and do enough research into what's happened here, because Binance were actually one of the first investors into FTX, right? So they obviously, CZ was all about SBF, that like these guys were close, they had a good relationship, etc. And then we move on from here, and Binance and CZ excited their position for a mixture of stablecoin and exited for stablecoin and FTT tokens. So do you remember how much it actually was that you got out? It was $2 billion worth, something like that?
Well, I tried to research online the exact price, and it said 500 mil, but then I know that they were dumping like 2.2 bill on the market, so I don't know if that's an appreciated asset or whether the Google was just wrong. So I didn't find the exact figure, but it was quite a lot anyway.
Yeah, so obviously they got a lot out of it there, and then this obviously ticks CZ off massively, because obviously he was trying to get involved with like Binance Washington, all his like. So SBF's been like really active in terms of getting the crypto space like regulated, and it's kind of, we've spoke about this on multiple weeks now. We've spoken about SBF. I can't remember how many episodes we spoke about him, and every single episode we've always asked that question at the end, like, what are his intentions? What's his plan? What's he doing? He's making a lot of noise right now within the crypto space, etc. And this story here has literally, it's almost exposed what he was trying to get up to, what he like in terms of recent times, what his plan was.
Definitely.
But anyway, we'll move on. So obviously this ticked off CZ off massively, and BitBoy Crypto, who also knew something before us all, because if you don't remember, he went on this massive rant, was it a week ago or two, about SBF and all these other people who were trying to kill the space. So did he know something that we didn't? Probably. And I also read something else just on that topic, that obviously, you know how Binance and CZ invested into Twitter, like we discussed last week.
Yeah.
Apparently, SBF tried to get a piece of that pie as well, but
Yeah, I saw
they
that.
didn't want any of it.
Yeah, they
So
didn't want him
it makes
involved.
you think. Yeah, exactly. So it makes you think that did certain people know what SBF was kind of up to or what he was
Yeah,
doing wrong with
and
FTX?
to add to that, I actually did write about it in this thread, but like it only posted half my thread for some reason, and I had to repost the end. Interesting that Kathy Wood bought $22 million worth of Coinbase shares like 2 days ago before this blew up. So, like obviously people know, and it just makes me think like, how is it? How is this fair? Like in any way? Like
I
Kathy
know,
Wood
like
coming through and buying Coinbase shares before the blow up of like one of the biggest crypto exchanges. Just a
this is what I mean.
strange topic.
This is what I mean. Like I said, for the amount of time that I've been in like the financial space or like really taking like a keen interest in it, the amount of times I've seen something like that happen, whether it be crypto or stocks or anything like that, how people position themselves perfectly in a matter of days before, and a black swan happens. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, so is it a black swan? Anyway, back
Mm.
to the thread. Back to Will's thread. So CZ went on to play some insane 5D chess, and basically he eliminated the trading fees from on Bitcoin trading on Binance. So
Mhm.
in essence, taking some of FTX's like customer base just because it's a bit of an incentive for people to go and use Binance, like he says here. And then obviously that CoinDesk article got released. When did that get released? Late last week actually, which I didn't even pick up on at the time. And it was kind of like starting to ignite the rumors that Almeida, who's like SBF's kind of was it an investment company
Yeah,
that
like
he's a
their
bit
holding
big
company
on,
or something. Yeah, I'm not sure.
and their whole balance sheet's made up of like FTT token, etc.
Hmm.
Um,
To be
so
fair,
that
I didn't
report
pick
came
up on
out.
that really.
What was that?
I didn't really pick up on that article either till
No, did I?
like until
Until
like
it all
now
blew
anyway.
up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, literally, that's what I mean. And then obviously CV goes destruction level 100, announcing his concern regarding the FTT token publicly. Obviously, after that article was released, and then saying that obviously I think he tweeted saying that obviously when he exited or
Hmm.
parted ways with FTX or whatever it was, what happened there, he had $2 billion worth of, and that he was going to get rid of it. Obviously, start to get rid of it from learning from the Luna collapse that happened like not long ago. So
Yeah.
basically, almost firing shots towards SBF and FTX at that time,
Hmm.
saying that it's basically saying back then, which it turns out to be correct. It was a bit of similarities to Luna. Let me get rid of that. And then this kind of started like the bank run, basically, which a lot of people kind of suspected in the early stages of like this Twitter debacle, what happened, that this was going to happen. So like I think, so I'll just read this actually. Starting the bank run on FTX as people flood out to sell their FTT tokens, whilst also withdrawing their funds from the site because, like we've learned from all these collapses that happened over the past couple of months, like no more money's safe in that exchange at this point. So everyone's obviously rightly so trying to withdraw all their money. I'm pretty sure they paused withdrawals. A lot of people, it was taking a lot of people a lot of time to get their funds. So that just added to the panic. So
Yeah, and
and just what created
I just
kind
want
of
to add one thing to that is like just as a heads up for myself and like um, I have one client who we had a big tether short position open on FTX, and I was on the way to Mount Battle with like 1 bar of 4G signal, and I managed to remember my passwords, close the options trade, and cash my money out like I think it was like Tuesday morning, early hours my time, because I saw this sort of thing come in. So that well, we've got some announcements like towards the end of this, but one of them's going to be we're probably going to start a premium membership, so I can try and keep some specific people in a small group like on top of things as soon as possible. But I managed to stay out of that, but only because of like my experience before in the market, and like maybe I could help some other people do that in the future. I just wanted to throw that out there to say I did see it come in, but only really late, and I didn't really talk about it too much online because I don't like to spread FUD, but I do keep my clients' capital protected if I'm looking after it as best I can. Like you don't see everything, but if I see potential for a crack, and let's be completely honest, like I didn't make the best trades with it. I actually like slid it into ETH to get it off because I thought ETH would have the liquidity to be able to withdraw from the site if everything started to go tits up, and it did. But obviously ETH's come down in value, but I think they'd much rather have the extra money in Ethereum than have that locked on FTX right now.
Yeah, like I'm sure like a lot of people are going to learn at least a few things from this like collapse as well. As because that's all it is basically, just experience of it takes you to kind of be in the market when something like this happens for you to really like learn certain things about whatever it is you're in the market you trade, like what happened to Will, etc. But it's still not nice regardless. But yeah, so obviously this bank run started. There's a lot of panic going around whilst FTX, whilst SBF himself actually was coming out, like I said, tweeting, saying that the funds are safe, etc. There's nothing wrong. It's an attack from CZ kind of thing. He went down that route. And whilst behind closed doors, he's actually having meetings and trying to sort this whole crisis out because he knew at this point what was going on, what was going to happen. He's not an idiot. He's not stupid. And then a day later, one of the people that SBF went for the bailout was CZ, i.e. Binance. And then this whole kind of thing came out that Binance were going to acquire FTX and like kind of almost save this like potential collapse of like crypto kind of thing. Almost CZ kind of taken over as a darling of crypto almost. So it was crazy how like these events kind of, obviously it was all down to them to do their due diligence on FTX, and like I said, this would give Binance 80% of the market share. So now at this point, like everyone thought this was an absolute like masterclass from CZ, which we're going to talk about later on. But after a small amount of time, some consideration, Binance and CZ decided to pass up on the opportunity, essentially stating that the problem is too big for them to even solve. And you kind of got this from SBF's tweet anyway, because like these 2 points here really, like when this thread got released from SBF, it made me think that, okay, look, he's trying to put up this front that this is happening, everyone's here. But if you have to tweet out that, but the important thing is the customers are protected. So if they didn't step in the first place, the customers were never protected, even though he went actively on Twitter saying that everything's fine, everyone's customers like funds are fine. Yet he has to kind of tweet that after. So it just threw a lot more shade on his name, in my opinion, anyway. So obviously they backed out of the deal. And at this point, SBF and FTX are in deep trouble. It comes to light, FTX are artificially inflating their own bags by selling their FTT tokens to users and institutions, using the capital to buy stablecoin and using these stablecoins to take large leverage bets. We've seen this before. It's almost like we're repeating of the other collapses. They've all kind of followed in the same footsteps. So I don't know why he thought it would work out differently for him this time. Anyway, so once word gets out, withdrawals on their site increase massively as their FTT token implodes. If you've not seen the price of that, I just have to show you this chart here and you will know exactly what we're talking about here, that big red candle right there. So from $25 to down to $115 in a matter of 3 days, that's 95% loss. So imagine the amount of people that lost money in that. It just blows my mind. And then it exposes the main problem. Rumors ensue that their balance sheet has like a $8 to $20 billion hole in it, and like I said, that's when the withdrawals get paused. Almeida's FTX holding company's balance sheet got leaked, and it appears over 50% of their holdings were FTT token. I just don't know why she clicks on that. Ultimately leading to their website going offline. They've gone ghost, and SBF is reportedly on the run. Is he actually on the run? Because I didn't hear that.
Yeah, reportedly.
Is he actually on the run?
Yeah.
And the brackets, this made me laugh. Maybe he's staying with Duke one. That's pretty sweet. So ultimately, CZ starts to take market share anyway. What a guy! So what happens is the big question. Let me throw a few ideas out there for you. So first and foremost, thoughts are they owe somewhat between. Obviously, no one knows the exact figure yet because information is still getting kind of released to us. They owe $8 to $20 billion to someone. Do you know what I mean? Like this money it's not just going to disappear now. They've got all these investors, etc. Who else is entangled in this leverage mess? Where does this contagion spread? And what does this mean for crypto? Can FTX be saved? We'll keep an eye on it for now. And there's loads of mess basically.
Well,
That's the rest
to be
of the
honest,
thread.
I actually had like 3 or 4 more tweets to that, but I was in like a cafe with not a lot of internet. And when I just posted some extra ideas of like what could happen next essentially, and I gave some really some left field ideas, so I want to just throw some of them out there now. So one was, and I'm not sure if we're definitely going to get into this, but we did talk about it a little bit before we came on the podcast. One was, who are their investors? So we're looking at we have got people like your BlackRocks in there, and they are big enough to bail out someone of that size. Is it in their interest to do that? Is it in their interest to bail them out, depending on who's tied into this equation. JP Morgan, your BlackRocks, your BNY Mellons, those people can bail out a situation like this. Yes, it's not blooming cheap, but it's possible, especially at a time when we might start to see regulation. So I threw some really like left field things out there, like will we see a bailout from someone like that, or will we see some strong legislation come out and all of a sudden JP Morgan are going to offer, for example, not necessarily JP Morgan, but at JP Morgan they're going to offer a completely like regulated crypto exchange straight off the back of regulation, or one absolute or two turns. One was going to be, would Twitter come through potentially by FTX's customer base, link that into Twitter for payments, and create like an ultimate platform like Elon Musk wants. And finally, what about this? This is the least likely, but still has a chance, in my opinion. Is FTX and a systemically important financial tool, and can the US government come through and bail out? They bailed out the banks in 2008. What is the real difference here? Like, yes, it's not as regulated, but they're still going to want their finger in the pie. CZ's obviously like had a lot of exposure with China in the past. They don't want all them FTX customers going over to China. So are they going to come through and maybe make a purchase of it, or help fund Coinbase to buy out the FTX customers? Because the last thing that America really want right now is for a lot of people running to other exchanges that might be outside of the US. So they were my thought processes on it that I did actually write threads about, or tweets about, and it's not posted.
Down Twitter, we'll have to get onto Elon about that. But no, that last point is interesting because, like I said, I was listening to like a Real Vision podcast this morning on the way to work, and they were kind of going down the lines that, you know, when a bank collapses, say take 2008 for example, they can get bailed out by central banks because they can essentially print money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in crypto, we don't have that. We don't have that bailout body as such yet. Or to our knowledge, so the best option at the time, and which is obviously what came out, was the biggest exchange, i.e. the biggest bank of crypto, i.e. Binance, to bail them out. That was the only option. But it's interesting to see what happens. And like you said, America, FTX being on the American exchange, there's a lot of people who could be getting hurt from this. So it'll be interesting to see how like the big boys kind of see if they come in and try to limit the damage almost. But like I said, this story is still kind of quite fresh, but we'll see. I'm sure we'll have a lot more news on it next week anyway. But I'll just quickly cover this thread as well, because this is a really good thread here by Miles. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that second name because I'm just know I'm going to mess it up. But again, he covers similar points to Will's, but I'll just really quickly skim over anyway. So, you know, so for a long time, obviously SBF was like idolized within the space. Arbitrage trade found in FTX and Alameda, hugely successful investments in Sol. He raised a lot of money. He was invincible. When Luna collapsed and all this was happening back in June, he bailed out BlockFi for $240 million. He bidded for Voyager's assets and considered bailing out Celsius. And obviously, like I said earlier on, we were questioning, why is he doing this? Now, was he just trying to save the collapse from coming back to him, and it would have exposed his balance sheets? Who knows? But like Miles says here, cracks were appearing like a long time ago, because we had Alameda's CEO resigned back in August. We had FTX's president, he stepped down. Did these people know something? Probably. They knew something was going to kick off down the road, probably. What else happened here? So, and then he kind of goes into SBF, his interest in politics, because I think he donated $50 million towards these like midterms here. He was like the second largest donator here for one of the parties there. So then it's like people are really like starting to question his interest and where he actually wants to take crypto. So there was like a big conflict of interest anyway, from it being like obviously centralized or decentralized. He's funding so much to like the potential government who's going to come in power kind of thing. So and then he obviously came out and said that his plan was to donate $1 billion in a 2024 US presidential election. Again, here clearly Sam has political interests at heart. What else? There's something else really interesting in here. Obviously, he goes in to talk about BitBoy as well. Did he know something? And then everyone's probably seen this quiz here, how it's such quite a funny clip, but how SBF wanted to like decentralize emails, but he didn't want to decentralize like the financial payment system. So he kind of got questions, what's the difference? Couldn't give an answer. Again, that questions his morals, what he actually wants, and was he actually just doing it for his exchange FTX? Obviously, in hindsight, he obviously was. And then obviously, like we said here, Wednesday, Almeida's balance sheet got leaked, and then there was a lot of like hoo-ha going on about it, breaking down concerns in the balance sheet. Someone wrote a thread in terms of like how similar this was looking to the collapse of Celsius, and basically referred to this model here: create your token, pump your token price, make gains on your balance sheet, show gains to investors, raise cash through equity sales and loans, which is basically what happened here. And he says it on this page here, if that starts to reverse and starts going the other way, like it did this time, the effects are 1,000 times quicker and a lot 1,000 times worse when it starts to reverse. Um, and then he starts talking about the market cap of the FTT token here. So it says FTX Exchange and Alameda Research hold 8 billion in FTT, which is valued illiquid against the real market cap of 3 billion. So there was again a 5 billion magic money kind of, where's that kind of thing going to go in, spurred on a lot more like rumors kind of thing here. And then it kind of came out that CZ was obviously going to start to dump his FTT and then just to obviously protect Binance, protect himself. That all kind of came out. Again, little shots here and there from each other. He said this is what I kind of covered earlier on Will's thread, how he kind of made comparisons to the lunar collapse there. And yeah, basically, I can carry on here, just carry on through this thread, but you guys can just go and watch it in your own time. It's basically most of the things that Will kind of said in his. It's just a mess. Like, it's just an absolute mess. Blocked, and because this is 3 days ago now. Lots happened since then. Obviously, Binance said that they were going to acquire it. Then, due to obviously them doing their due diligence, looking at the books, it kind of fell through. And then they also tweeted out yesterday saying that, as we announced today, Binance has topped up its secure asset fund for users balance to $1 billion. To basically prevent things like this happen to Binance potentially down the line. So yes, there's that question: did CZ kind of poke fun at SBF on purpose, and kind of like almost was he the catalyst for this whole thing to happen? Would it have unfolded the same way without CZ's tweets? Probably down the line, yeah, eventually. And now he's come out and almost. This tweet to me kind of like the reason I've included it into this roundup is because now it's like Binance are just so far clear at the top, which they already were, and then he's come out and said that they've topped up their secure asset fund and just kind of making Binance look like the good guys in this whole situation and just further almost dumping on SBF and other exchanges now, basically. But yeah, there's a lot, and obviously we've got Will Clements' tweet here, and it was relevant 2 days ago, obviously, but now obviously, but Binance aren't acquiring FTX. But it said CV starves FTX of revenue, 0% trading fees, and Binance, like Will said, shoots headshots at FTT and FTX publicly. FTX are unable to cover holes in balance sheet. CZ acquires FTX. Thanks for playing. And then now we reply GG. That's what it kind of looked like. Some people are still saying it's still concerns like CZ kind of did this on purpose. What do you think? Do you think that he had any ulterior motives, CZ?
I think there's like a few avenues you could go down with like ulterior motives. One could be, which I think is least likely right now. I think one could be that CZ has holes in his own balance sheet, and it's kind of like when you try and expose your own flaw or like expose flaws in other people, so they don't have to look at the flaws in yourself. That could be one avenue. Two could be he knew that this was going to happen and he's just trying to expedite it, make it happen faster, to try and get the crypto space crashing and recovering as soon as possible, because like we said, he could have done this behind closed doors if he didn't want to. He's obviously trying to gain at least publicity from this. There was potentially offers behind closed doors for people to buy the FTT token over the counter, but I mean that's not even a possibility now. But it is a bit like, do you need to throw him under the bus? Maybe. Like, I think we don't know what's fully transpired, and we'll find out in the future. Any time that someone's like funds are on the line, if my money was in that FTX account, I'd be fuming. I'm sure loads of people are. So maybe Sam Bankman-Fried deserves it. I mean, he definitely deserves it from what's been happening, but I don't really understand. I'd like to know what the actual play was behind CZ, is what I'm trying to say, is because, as we've said in the past, actually about Sam Bankman-Fried, when he was coming out of the dying of crypto, why are you coming out so publicly and openly about all this stuff? Are you trying to cover something else up? When you weren't saying at any point that he definitely was, we were just worried about that. And right now, I'm worried about CZ because he's basically doing what Sam Bankman-Fried did however many weeks ago, months ago. He's not obviously playing towards regulators, but he is openly showing how much of a good guy he is on Twitter, and like how he's got the interest, this space like at heart and all this sort of stuff. And I know he has been here for a long time. Like I used Binance back in my first bull run, which obviously 2016 I did use them. So he has been here for a long time. And if everything he's saying is true, then he just rings that message through. But it always makes me wonder when someone has to tell you something, like you said, if someone has to specifically state something, why are you stating that? Are you stating that because you want it to be obvious, or are you stating that because something's not right?
Exactly. Like, no, even now, like, it's the 10th of November today, we still don't know the ins and outs of what's going on. I'm sure there's a lot more going on behind closed doors than what is like the public know kind of thing, but it's just no good. It's no good for crypto, and like we can just might as well dive into the charts right now, to be fair, because I'm sure like everyone's obviously seen what's been going on. Not quite as bad as the June capitulation, but as soon as this kind of like broke out, what do? We traded down to like a 23% range. We've got Solana here, which was even worse, obviously.
I feel like Solana's
like,
just been like stuck in the middle. Like they've just been liquidating their Solana positions just to try and sell, like cover the debt on the balance sheets, and will Solana recover? This is what one of my closest friends here in Bali. He's a Solana YouTuber. He does YouTube on Solana NFTs, and I've said to him, because he's not been through a bull run like this before or a bear market like this either. Said to him, I always say, and like I've said to you, Pab, many times, I try not to invest into anything that hasn't been through a bull market and a bear market, because you don't know how things are going to react in the bear market. If Solana does make it through this period and make it out of this still functioning, which I presume it probably will, because there's nothing fundamentally wrong with the blockchain. Yes, it has been stopped a few times, but then the opportunity will be massive if the name's not been tainted too much by its investors. It's not the protocol's fault. It's actually the investors' fault that bought too much of it, propped the price up, and then basically had to dump it when their balance sheet is leaked, because they're like onboarding too much leverage and being greedy like humans are often. So it's a hard one to know whether it will survive, but I probably personally will be taking a position in Solana if we see between $5 and $8. That's my price target.
I mean, I wrote in the newsletter, because obviously I've been writing a lot in the newsletter. I had to change it a couple of times just because of how volatile the market's been, etc., how things have changed. But even in conditions like this, obviously be careful. Don't do anything stupid in terms of like leveraging your life savings or anything daft like that. But there is still opportunity to be made and money to be made, trades to be made in when stuff like this happens, because when the markets are so fearful, that's when sometimes the best opportunities arise. And just like Solana there, obviously I've wrote about Solana and I can't remember what edition it was on the newsletter, kind of bigging it up and saying where it could potentially go, and then something like this happens to it. It kind of pricks my ears up anyway, and like even down these prices, it's still potentially going to invest. But for now, for me, and like I wrote in the newsletter, I said the decision I'm making is we need the dust to settle a bit. We're still, like I said, it's the 10th of November. This started like slowly getting leaked like end of last week. We've not heard the half of it. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more things that could potentially swing the prices back and forth, because we only have to look at Bitcoin's price action on like a 4-hour basis to kind of see, like, Franz, look at that candle there. In the space of 4 hours, we saw a 17% swing in the space of 4 hours. I'm sure if you took that to an hour, you can see, because I'm pretty sure that's when Binance came out and said that they were going to acquire FTX, and then they pulled out of it, like obviously after they did their DD, etc. So it's just crazy how things are changing.
I personally do want to mention that XRP has actually held up pretty well throughout this whole thing. Like, it's sitting at 36 cents right now. Yes, we dipped down to like 30, 33, 32. 31 and a half. But yeah, we've still sat like quite well at 36 cents. And I don't think that's where we were like 2-3 weeks ago before we had that pump to 50 cents. it's not a bad position to be sitting in with all this going on around us with Ripple's swell event coming up. But like you said, I think there's going to be more to come, potentially with unraveling. We don't know, because on the flip side of that, there is always buyout opportunities. We don't actually know what's on the balance sheet. It's one of the big problems with crypto in general. Is we do not know. That's literally it. We don't know. But if FTX does get bought out, the markets will go nuts. The markets will go nuts. It'll be flushed out. But what will happen if it doesn't? Like, probably people are lending them money. Who's lending them money? How much are they lent? And then who goes bankrupt then? But the other thing I'm really thinking about is, I don't think many other crypto companies will have lent FTX money. I think legacy financial institutions will be the ones that suffer, which makes me think there's more chance of FTX getting bought out than another crypto company, because if it's a small exchange, the only people that have lent their money are probably other crypto exchanges or small-time legacy financial institutions. With FTX, you've got BlackRock in there. Anyone who's got BlackRock as an investor has the potential for some sort of bailout, in my opinion, or at least some sort of calculated asset management on the sell side. Like, I think there's a possibility it won't be as bad as everyone thinks. And another thing that I want to bring onto the back of that, this doesn't mean that this is my base case, but I think it's possible. Another thing I want to bring onto the back of that is a lot of people on Twitter who I've followed for many, many years, who have been in the cycles longer than me. For example, Kobe. He's a big name in the space. He's a bit of like a meme guy, but he's really knowledgeable on crypto. Him and others have come out almost saying they're done with crypto, and that makes me think we're close to a bottom, if not at one. If people like that are capitulating, what do you think the general market's feeling like? Who's selling? Who's going to sell out of this? Only the people who need to sell to cover their balance sheets. The rest of us are probably just sitting there. So maybe there's one more flush to come, which you normally find with a big capitulation like this, a bit more sideways action, and then a flush, and then that's probably the bottom. Everyone's leveraging shorts now. We start to short, we'll probably come a bit further down, then we'll probably have a short squeeze out of that, and that's when we'd see a V-bottom recovery, in my opinion. But what news spurs that on? Who knows? Could it be near a bottom? I think we're close, if we're not already there. I already thought we were at a bottom, but I also didn't foresee FTX blowing up. So I've been wrong about that, and I'll openly say that, but I could never really predict that FTX were going to blow up, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's tricky because obviously if you've been saying that, and like I've grown this like thesis that we're forming some sort of bottom around these prices, when something like this happens, no matter how much TA you do, there's no way of predicting anything like this kind of thing. Like those red candles don't just happen on the back of like simple TA. Well, they do, but like, do you know what I mean? If a catalyst like this happens, it's just instant like that. So, but
two
just
charts
on that point,
actually. No, go on. I want you to just cover two charts, because one's kind of gone under the radar a little bit because of all this news, and that's the DXY. I looked at that today, and that's formed 3 lower highs and 3 lower lows.
I'll just quickly pick up on that point though, for what you said there. You know how everyone was like, you were talking about those people who have been in crypto for so long and they're done with crypto, and I was actually watching some sort of like I think it was Kitco News, and he had someone on, and he basically saying this isn't the bottom because people are still there, people have still got money, people are still excited about crypto, and you have to go through that really like depressing phase where you actually think it's finished to really like form a solid bottom on the market. And I feel like this has almost, or is in the process of doing that. We're gone. We'll carry on those two shots. We'll go.
Yeah, just go to have a look at the DXY. So it's formed 3 lower highs and 3 lower lows, and it's kind of going under the radar. Obviously, we've got CPI today. I think that is at 8:30 my time. So maybe like an hour for you, is it, or 2 hours?
2 hours.
And then the other thing was, I haven't looked at the Bitcoin dominance since this, but looking at the altcoins being up quite a little bit more than Bitcoin, I presume Bitcoin dominance is probably dropping. So are we going to see a further drop in the Bitcoin dominance as well? So there are other things. Can we see an alt season or an alt pump out the back of this, especially with Ripple's swell event in like 2 weeks' time? Like, these things haven't changed. Could we see a lot of condensed crypto capital coming into certain cryptos, specifically alts? Because we know a lot of people are sitting in stablecoin anyway, and a lot of those people who have been sitting waiting for this like capitulation event, I don't know if anyone can really claim that they thought FTX would collapse, but people have been waiting for a lower low, and we've seen it now. Yes, we may see lower. I think people are looking for between 12 and 14k for Bitcoin. Some people are really respecting the space, are looking for those sort of prices. Do we or don't we see that? Again, playing with fire, like, in like a year or two, you're gonna look back at these prices and be like laughing. Honestly, you'll be laughing.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna bring this up for you guys because I've briefly covered it in this week's newsletter, so I'm not gonna go too much in depth on it. But just whilst we're on that talk, you can see this, right?
yep.
It's not just more. Okay, yeah, cool. So this is week 12 of our newsletter, and this is a particular bit that I wrote just about Glassnode and its balanced price, basically. What I was saying, this was obviously the 19th of October, so not almost a month ago, 3 weeks ago now, right? I was just on Glassnode, obviously trying to find some charts to speak about in the newsletter, and came across this. No one was really speaking about it too much, if I'm honest with you. But if you look at this chart here, this line here, the orange line, it shows the balance price of the USD. There's a definition for it right there.
Yeah.
Every time we've set a Bitcoin like cycle low, we've gone below this balance price here. And obviously I circled this one in blue because at the time of writing this, we hadn't dipped below it. It was actually standing at 16,560. Now we've gone below it. Now we've hit certain parameters like that. And I've also said here, we could see Bitcoin like visit 14 to 16K. The reason I said that is because like Will just said there, there's a lot of investors. Even now, I think, even though more people are some people have kind of jumped into the market now after this dip, we still have people on the sideline with money. They're still waiting for these lower lows to come in, kind of thing. The point I made in that newsletter, in that edition anyway, was the fact that I think we needed one more big like capitulation event kind of thing, or just another like shakeout, so people can just get that narrative out the head that there's 14 to 16K Bitcoin kind of thing, and they can jump in then, and maybe this is the time for that to happen. So another thing that kind of points to a bit of like a cycle low here that's could potentially be forming. But like Will said, I wouldn't be looking at your Bitcoin chart thinking this is the end of it, because like Will said, when we see these like big capitulations here, like we saw back in June here, we drop, but it's a few days of sideways, something happens and drop again kind of thing. So that's where we are right now, I think anyway. We could potentially be in that bit where the dust is starting to settle kind of thing. Will we see another like wick down? It could be a quick down and up, but and I'll stick to my guns. I don't think we're actually going below like 14, 13 anyway. Like I just don't see that happening, going sub 10K Bitcoin, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, it's maybe we'll look back on this and think this whole Binance and FTX thing was all in all good for the market. Obviously, it's exposed a lot of things, but you've also got to look at the positive side to this. As a market standpoint and a technical analysis kind of standpoint, when you look at the charts, have we had that final shakeout? Are people in that depressing phase kind of thing now, or are we starting to form that? Whether we go like 2K lower, so it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one to play right now, but I just don't really know what else.
I don't really have too much to give to that because I think we're going to talk about that for some small clips in a minute, and I'm going to talk about this in my newsletter today. I'm going to write that tomorrow morning actually. So I'm going to leave that there. We've kind of gave a good overall insight into the market and what we think is going on. The one thing we haven't actually touched on, which is the tab at the top there, is the library case that was lost by library, obviously. But I think again, let's touch on that another time because I think we need to keep the highlight on this FTX debacle. And library, in my opinion, is a bit of a nothing burger. People like we're trying to back library because of the SEC, but yeah, I kind of want to finish the podcast there if you're happy with that as well. Like,
well, I think I've tried to do the best job. Like I said, there's a lot of information out there, guys. Visit the thread. There's loads of information on Twitter, YouTube, etc. There's a lot of like like I said, go check out like Real Vision's daily podcast that they've started doing. They kind of cover everything there as well. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of information still behind closed doors, so I'm sure we'll find out and report on it, because I'm guarantee you we'll be covering this topic in next week's roundup anyway. So be sure to tune in, and we'll obviously have CPI data for you. And I'm sure a lot of price.
Exactly, yeah. Before we finish, I just want to say that we do now have a website. Pav, do you want to bring up the website?
Oh, yeah. Almost forgot.
So Pav's been hard at work creating a weekly insight.co.uk website, which is obviously for the newsletter. And we haven't announced this yet, but we are going to release a premium subscription as well as a standard subscription. Standard gives you access to our newsletter and our macro, crypto, and technical analysis insights every week. And the premium service is going to be a limited service for We haven't discussed the exact amount of people, but you're going to have a weekly call with us, as well as help with portfolios and access to us in a group chat. But it will be for a higher price tag, but again, only for those people who really need the extra help and advice, including some one-to-ones discounts in there as well. So that's everything for us. If you want to go check out the website, where is it, Fav?
Website's here, theweeklyinsight.co.uk. We just finished like making it, everything, so it's still a bit fresh kind of thing. But like I said, there is going to be another tab here for this premium membership that we're going to do, and I'm sure what we're going to do is probably release some sort of document entailing exactly what you're going to get from this package, so you guys, everyone knows, obviously, because if you're paying a premium price, you want that premium service, etc. But no, check out the website. Here we've got a homepage, a couple snippets here which I'll update here and there kind of thing, just so people know what they're potentially getting. Obviously, we've got the Glassnode stuff here, talking about the ISM there. Also, a review section, which we are currently obviously working on getting reviews uploaded to there, because there's nothing that's been uploaded to the website yet. But yeah, go check it out, have a look. And yeah, I think that's a wrap for this week.
Oh, we've got one more, one more announcement. We're working on a project for anyone who enjoys gaming. We are creating a gaming community. Web3 and gaming, it's called. So if you're into gaming and into Web3, we're launching a 1,000 NFTs as a factory NFT access card to our community. It's going to be on the XRP ledger specifically, at least to start with. This NFT you probably want to get your hands on, because everything that we then do in the future is going to be airdropped to this NFT. If you basically are into gaming like we are, and you like Web3, you want someone to play with, you want some people to talk to who are into similar things than you, as you are, it's going to be 100 XRP. It's not launched yet, but you can catch us over on Twitter. The light paper is there, and it's at Web3 and Gaming. So go and check that out. If you don't already follow, then you're a snake. Go and follow.
Yeah, cool. Well, no, that's a wrap anyway. But we'll speak to you guys next week, and that's peace up, A-Town down for now.
Peace up.